So we're going to start off with introducing survival analysis, what it is, some of the important components of it, and we'll slowly build up and dig into things. But first we got to lay a bit of a foundation for it. Okay, so survival analysis is where we're modeling an outcome that is a time until an event. Okay, so it's used to model time till death, how long someone wait on a wait list for surgery, when you call a 1-800 line, how long are you on hold until someone picks up the phone, things like these. Okay, so how much time goes by until an event occurs. And what makes survival analysis unique is that the Y, okay, or the outcome, has two parts. And that's one part, the time, or T, it's the amount of time someone was followed for, and the second part is an indicator if the event occurred, 0 for no, 1 for yes. So we might follow someone and find we followed them for 1.5 years and then they died. Okay. Or there might be someone else that we followed for 1 year and then our study ended and they were still alive. Okay, we know that if beyond that, but we don't know how much beyond. Okay, so the outcome has these two parts: the time they were followed for, and an indicator of if the event occurred or not. And so just jumping a little bit ahead, when we get to working with survival analysis in R, the way we're going to specify our outcome variable, the Y, we're going to use a capital S. It's going to be SURV, so for survival, and then we're going to give it Y, comma, E. Or I should say, I guess, maybe I should label that T. So the survival outcome, the time they were followed for, and whether or not the event occurred. Okay, these all make up our outcome variable. We need to talk a little bit about the idea of censoring. We've already informally mentioned that a little bit. Censoring is used as a way of measuring, did the event occur, yes, or it did not occur, it was censored. So let's talk a little bit about exactly what that means. So let's think of, we have the start of our study, so we'll call this time 0, and we've got the end of the study, and let's call this time 5. Okay, so let's think of it as being a 5-year study, and here's time 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when I write down, I'm going to use simple numbers so we can do the simple calculations here. So we could have someone join our study at the start, we follow them, and at the 3.5-year mark, they die. Okay, so I'll put the X there saying they died. Okay. This person has a time of 3.5. They were followed for 3.5 years, and the event occurred. Okay, so we put E of 1, meaning the event occurred, they died. We also might have someone join our study, say in year 1, and then at year 3, they die. This person here, the time they were followed for was 2 years, went from year 1 to year 3, and again, E equals 1, right? The event occurred, they died. Okay. What we could also have happen, someone joins our study at the start, they survive, now our study ends and they're still alive. Okay. So we're going to leave an open circle, meaning at 5 years they were still alive. They survived beyond here, but we don't know how long. Okay. Our data is censored at that point, right? We're no longer following them. So this person here has a time of 5 and E of 0, right? The event did not occur, okay? They were censored. And again, so stuff like this, censoring, is what makes survival data unique. We know that this person survived more than 5 years. We don't know how much more, right? At that point, they were censored and we're no longer following them. We could also have someone join our study at year 4, and then the study ends, and they're still alive. Okay, so again, this person has time 1, and the event did not occur. We may also have things like this. Someone joins our study in year 1, and then by year 3, they're lost to follow-up. Okay, so let's suppose that at year 3, they stopped returning our calls, they stopped showing up for our studies. We don't know what's happened to them. Okay? They may have lived beyond, but we don't know how much. So again, this individual has time of 2, they were followed for 2 years, and the event did not occur. So we'll see shortly how censoring gets incorporated into survival data, or how we deal with stuff like this, where we know that this person, their time is actually greater than 2, right? They survived more than 2 years. We don't know how much more. Same with this person here. Their time is actually greater than 5. So we'll see how we deal with that. A few things to mention before we do. These here all get called right censoring, meaning the right endpoint was censored. There also does exist this idea of we may start following someone at year 1 and follow and see how long they died, but we don't know when they actually contracted the disease. So suppose we're looking at time till death after contraction of disease. Okay? And we know at this point they have the disease, but we don't know at what point they contracted it. So these get called right censoring. And this is a topic we're not going to talk about, how to deal with right censoring. Left censoring in the state there. We've got the other one right. The left endpoint has been censored. Okay, so we're not going to talk about in our course how to address left censoring. We're only going to talk about addressing right censoring. One final thing to say about censoring. All of the survival models we're going to look at, they all assume that censoring is non-informative. And what that means, for censoring to be non-informative, it means being censored, okay, or not, is not related to the probability of the event occurring. So examples of what informative censoring would be is, suppose if this person here was in the study and they were getting much worse, okay, and they knew that they were going to die, they might stop showing up for our study. Okay. In that example, the censoring is informative, right? This person being censored means they were more likely to die. Or on the other side, in the kind of positive story, maybe this person, the treatment's working really well and they're getting better. And they're doing so much better that they stop coming. Okay, and again, in that example, being censored is related to a much lower likelihood of dying. Okay? So we're assuming that observations that are censored are non-informative, or there's no reason why they're censored. It's either the study ended, that's why they're censored, or there's just lost the follow-up. Okay? They moved to a new city and stopped showing up. But it's not because they were more likely or less likely to die. There are ways to check if censoring seems to be informative or not, but it's not always so straightforward. And what we want to do is, when we design studies, we want to make sure they're designed as well as they can to make sure we do not lose people to follow, or if we are losing them, then we can figure out why that's the case. So we can confirm that it's not because they're getting better or worse, it's for some other reason.
Stick around, guys. There's more to see, and please stay safe.